Therapy, but make it public. Vulnerability, but make it powerful. This is where real stories turn into real connection and courage takes the mic. Let's welcome Madina Alam, licensed mental health therapist. You may also recognize her from The Bachelor season 28 that aired last year. We're so glad to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so mental health on tour. It sounds like you're taking a comedy act or a musical act out on the road, but truly it's anything but funny, more so healing. When did you first get the idea that you thought vulnerability shouldn't be such a personal thing and should really be made more public than it is?
Yeah, I actually got the idea when we finished filming for The Bachelor. I had actually opened up about something that I personally felt self-conscious about. And, as a therapist and as a human who loves self-improvement, I thought it was going to be a beautiful moment where people could connect or relate or feel less alone. And also to see that people, like, no matter where we're from or who we are, we all have things we're self-conscious about. A lot of people did relate, but a lot of people told me not to feel the way I felt. They told me that I shouldn't feel that way, that it's stupid, that it's silly, amongst a lot of other comments that I won't say on here because the internet can be really mean.
Yeah.
And I even remember my producer at the time saying, no one wants to see anyone self-conscious on TV, which I thought was very interesting because for me, self-conscious means being aware of yourself. And that's such a beautiful thing that most of us actually strive to do or to be like. And so I essentially birthed these events where people are opening up on a deeper level, storytelling, sharing true things that they may have gone through or overcame. And it's really, truly the number one way to connect with people is to go a little bit more beyond the surface.
Gosh, I have so many questions for you here. I'm surprised to learn that your producer would say don't appear to be so self-conscious. I guess self-conscious comes with a negative connotation these days. We're more used to using self-awareness. Do you think that there's a difference, or are they basically the same thing?
I think they're the same thing, but they have, like you said, a negative connotation.
Yeah.
And I get what they meant, right? Like, it's reality TV. People probably, when they go to watch reality TV, they don't want to see someone who's aware and vulnerable. And that's why my whole slogan is to make it sexy, because I would love to see vulnerability and sensitivity, right? Like, sensitivity, I believe, is being in tune with how you feel, how things impact you, which again is a beautiful thing, but we hear that thrown around in a negative way all the time, like you're sensitive. And I think that's a great thing, to be in tune.
So do you think by being vulnerable publicly that maybe that's a way that we can just sort of, learn to be ourselves again?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point. The number one predictor to happiness is connection, feelings of connection. So it doesn't mean how many people you know, but how connected you feel to those people. And truly the only way to feel connected is to share beyond the surface level. And not pretending that everything's okay or that nothing makes you feel self-conscious or nothing ever affects you. Like, I think that's such a disservice we've done to society, is like, let's just be even with our emotions. And I just don't think that's healthy.
No, absolutely not. So how does one, before we get into the details of the show that you've got coming to town, what are some of the ways that people can learn to be vulnerable again? Because I think at one point in our history, humanity was vulnerable, and then that kind of went away. So how do we go back to that?
Yeah, I preach a lot in my therapy that if we don't like the way we feel, we have to act in opposition. So if we want to feel okay with being vulnerable and to see it as a beautiful thing, you have to act as if it's a beautiful thing. So that means you do have to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and maybe share a little bit deeper with a friend or a loved one or family member, literally modeling vulnerability. And that's kind of what the tour is meant to do too. So I know it sounds simple, it's not easy. The concept is simple, but just opening up to someone close to you.
Yeah, and you say that you specialize in exposure response prevention therapy. What is that?
Yeah, it's the number one research-backed type of therapy for anxiety-related disorders. So the whole crux of it is that we are showing people physically out of their fears versus talking with them about why they're scared. And so it's a very behavioral type of therapy. So instead of, for example, talking about why someone might be scared to drive, we're actually driving together.
Okay. And as people start to practice more vulnerability in the new year, how can we then sort of arm ourselves with the tools that we need if we are pushed back?
I always say if you're vulnerable and people receive that inaccurately or in a negative way, then that's just a good indicator that they're probably not the best for you in your life. You can set boundaries. If it's someone you don't necessarily need in your life, maybe it's good information for you to now know that's not the type of person you want, because you have different values, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we live in a society where there's a lot of loneliness out there. And I think when you show up as your authentic self, you do attract the people that should be in your life. They will come. It may take some separating the wheat from the chaff, but they will come eventually, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's talk about your show. So it's Unfiltered Minds, Real Stories, Real Healing. You're going to be here in Charleston Tuesday, January 6th at 6:30 to 8 p.m. And this is going to be at Industrious. This is downtown Charleston. We're going to put the information on the screen. Madina, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
We'll be back in 2 minutes.